What's up, Toasty? Yeah, we should probably give it a few more minutes to let people pile in. Anybody wants to
Yeah, I'm gonna
share?
bring Lo-Fi back up just for about a minute or so. There we go. Cool. Well, that seems like a good time to move Lo-Fi off the stage and kick this off. Hunt, you ready?
Yeah, you can kick it off,
Cool.
bro.
Well, thanks everybody for joining. Usually, we've had to move this office hour around a little bit. Schedule's changing. We have people traveling on our team, ins and outs. But decided to pivot this office hour over to an AMA style. We can obviously still talk about some of the stuff we're working on in marketing as it may come up. But the top of mind for us is that we kicked off a proposal in towards the second half of last week that was outlining changes happening to the marketing and growth workstream. I can bullet point those down real quick just to give everybody an overview if you haven't had the chance to read it. But essentially, the proposal that we made was to split off LATAM and globalization as its own workstream, and they would be separate from the marketing growth workstream. They would function under the Smith, who would be running as their workstream leader. And then with those changes, they would have the same amount of budget. It would go still until November 1st, which is the remaining 4 months of the marketing growth workstream. Uh, and then marketing and growth, we would also have some changes made as well. Leadership changes. Hunt and myself would be stepping down as workstream leaders. Hunt would go over to be an advisor for LATAM and globalization, as well as helping with like the transitory period of getting the new workstream leader, who we were proposing would be Lindsay Liu. She is out today, but we'll be back tomorrow, first thing tomorrow morning. So we'll cover her spot a little bit, but if there's any other questions that pop up for her, she'd be more than happy to answer them. And myself would be reducing my capacity to more of a PM role to also help with the transition from our leadership from having two co-workstream leaders, Hunt and myself, over to Lindsay. Now the proposal was made, or at least we posted in the forum, started receiving lots and lots of feedback, which was very welcomed. Lots of good criticism, some support, but overall, the whole feeling was that we should be taking a different approach and doing two, possibly even three separate proposals instead of just one proposal to kind of like wrap it all up. So that's the direction we are going to take. We will be doing when I say we, Hunt and myself will be helping the Smith get a proposal stood up for LATAM and globalization, establishing them as a new workstream within the DAO. And then we'll also simultaneously be working on a proposal that will essentially give leadership control, workstream leader permissions over to Lindsay Liu and Hunt and myself stepping down in the process. We're going to be pushing the LATAM one and Globalization one first. So it makes it a little bit easier to take a look at the marketing and growth workstream budget, which will also be going through reduction. People are going to be taking large quantities of Fox as their salary versus stablecoin. So all of this, is a net positive. We'll be reducing roles capacity, cutting budget, making it a little bit more smaller team, streamlined, but still retaining some of the talent with Hunt is an advisor for LATAM and myself is more of a PM role to make sure nothing falls by the wayside for some of the big projects we've been, working on some of the partnerships. So that's kind of like a, couple minute overview of what we're trying to accomplish. Hunt, was there anything I missed or anything you want to chime in?
No, that sounds accurate. We just need to align the stars with people traveling, and things like that to really nail this down correctly, at this point.
Cool. Yeah. So maybe it'll help. I'll go over like a rough timeline of how this will be taking place. Let me pull up a calendar and then give you guys kind of rough dates, and then we can kick it over to you. We could open it up for questions, open it up for comments. Yeah, and run it as an AMA. So rough timeline right now. Willie Fox and the Smith and Vlad and a few other people are at ETH Barcelona right now, and they're going to be there for a couple more days. I believe ETH Barcelona runs through the 6th. Might be a little bit longer than that. I'd have to check. But they will be traveling. So during this process, the communications will be a little bit lighter from LATAM, but Hunt will be helping them and myself will be helping them frame out the proposal. But the goal of that is to go live, at least into a forum, answering all the questions from the document that Willie established in the forum of a new proposal draft. So hopefully we'll be going live in the next few days. From there, we'll move it over to ideation and a lot of time once changes are made, if we have some good feedback, and then into voting. Once it goes into voting, that's when we'll kind of kick off the new forum post that is going to be just targeted around marketing and growth, our new budget, change of leadership, and hopefully have this all resolved before the end of the month. It gives a nice 4-month runway to LATAM and globalization, nice 4-month runway to Lindsay Liu to run out the rest of the term.
Yeah, that sounds right. I think Bars goes till the 8th. And then 3 or 4 LATAM guys, I think maybe even 4 LATAM guys, so like half the LATAM team basically, is there till the 12th or 13th, traveling till like the 13th or 14th, I believe, with like connections and then like bus or like train or whatever they have to do. So that's probably the timeline and actually getting like everybody's okay on the proposal realistically. I mean, we can try to work with them while they're at the event, but I don't know that that's probably a good idea at this point, with something this major. So
Yeah, so it could flex the timeline a little bit, but at least we'll have some of those questions answered. The Smiths should be available. Hunt and I will work with them. But yeah, that's kind of the timeline we're still targeting in August 1st, like roll up if all of this were to pass. So that's kind of like the nitty gritty. That's the direction that we're headed. Splitting these up into 2 proposals and running with it there. Were there any kind of questions, comments? This is where I can open up the stage. Feel free to like raise your hand. I'll pull you up. You can type it out in the chat, because we did have lots of comments, lots of people weighing in on the forum. So I just wanted to allot the time to voice those concerns. And sometimes it's better communicated via voice than typing lots of paragraphs.
what's up, John?
Hey all, how's it going?
It's going, man.
So just want to say I really appreciate the effort on these proposals, and you guys taking the feedback from the community, particularly on splitting it up. One question I have that I just don't really understand is there some reason why the marketing and growth and LATAM ones can't basically go forward simultaneously, especially because the marketing and growth one seems like it's mostly already done based on the latest post? Like why do we have to do one and then the other?
So there is a slight concern over timing and budget. So if we were to completely cut out like the LATAM globalization budget and it were to not pass, we'd essentially be losing that chunk of team. And if they didn't pass by August 1st and get paid out by the marketing and growth work stream, we're kind of kicking people to the curb. They could be potentially losing their jobs. So it's kind of a stability reason. They're functioning under the marketing and growth right now. We don't really have a doubt that they're going to pass as a proposal, but it's kind of a safety net for them to make sure we're not just losing that big portion of the team that's finally kind of got up to speed and executing pretty well.
Yeah, I hear that concern. I just feel like there's probably ways to solve that without having to slow down what you guys have already started. Like, I mean, you've already got the initial post on the marketing and growth one. That could even go to ideation as soon as this week. You could always add like a caveat that like if the LATAM one doesn't pass, then there's like a carve out in the marketing and growth for them until that's figured out or has to be figured out separately. I just, from my perspective, it seems like these are important governance items and we shouldn't delay one for the other. But it's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point. Hunt and I will talk about that, possibly adding the caveat in the budget. It was also to reduce the workload overall of like a new work stream leader. Say, Mark Latam goes through, Hunt and myself step down, even though we're doing the transitory period and still helping Lindsay out. If Latam were to stay on longer, then she's now managing a larger team, which we had 2 work stream leaders for before. But I hear you on the potential putting a caveat in there that until the LATAM proposal passes, X amount is allotted for X amount of time. And the budget wouldn't increase at all. So that's the benefit of this too, is that the budget wouldn't change for marketing and growth with LATAM splitting up. At the end of the day, the DAO treasury would still see, I think it's like a $250 to $350 change increase. So it's not anything of significance to the DAO treasury. So yeah, we could definitely word it in there and possibly push the other one forward.
Yeah, in terms of the people though too that are like agreeing to step forward with like these roles, we're still in the process of like, getting them to be like, okay, yeah, let's do this. So it's definitely something that's on my mind. Like we're gonna talk to the Smith today, and like I was supposed to talk to them earlier, but I was on a call. So we're supposed to talk to them today now that they're all in Barcelona. Half the Latin team will be there on that call, so that'll be good. But we're still trying to get people to say like, okay, this sounds right. I don't think that we're necessarily at the point where everybody's like, okay, let's do this, especially because like I just filled in Arena, for example, a little bit in the last day or two. She was on vacation and stuff like that. So there's just all these like human items involved here too that we're trying to pin out.
Yeah, I get all that. I appreciate the response. I guess just voicing my thoughts here that like I feel like these are both really important governance proposals that you guys are moving forward, and I would just or whether it's 2 or 3 or whatever it ends up being, and I would love to just see them all go forward expeditiously. I don't want to see the marketing and growth one held back for like 2 or 3 weeks while we wait for governance on the LATAM one. Like even if you stagger it a little bit, you might be able to figure it out. But I just waiting for one full governance process seems a little too long to me. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
point. Thanks for coming
sure.
up here and addressing that.
Thanks, fellas.
Yeah, of course. Meg.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yep. How's it
Yeah,
going?
It's going. It's going. Um, just wanted to kind of dip into the conversation because something that's just been running through my mind as a fellow workstream leader who's making budget cuts and just seeing it happen across the board, that it's become kind of an ever-consuming topic that has, consumed many meetings, a lot of time over the course of the past month. And something I'm really curious about is more so like what happens after this smoke clears, and like where is our focus with marketing? Where are we going to be putting the most like TLC to really start like shifting our momentum again to like bringing in new users? So I'm just curious. I'm sure there's not a easy answer, but I'm kind of curious from your perspective. And you said Lindsay's not here, so or maybe if you can speak on behalf of Lindsay, what is going to be like the top 3 priorities in general for marketing to focus on that's coming through the product pipeline? or already
Yeah,
exist, I should say.
yeah, I think I can speak a little bit because of the direction I know that she's headed in. And she told me is, yeah, they essentially what she's trying to do is run a closer, smaller, streamlined team that's focused on kind of like the larger rollout and announcements that she has been doing, but just kind of cherry picking a little bit more instead of doing a broad announcement for every single thing we roll out. Is a little bit more strategic planning. She also wants to really kind of work closer with product and engineering. I know everybody's talking lately about product market fit, but we actually want to have like a marketing person go in there and help out. So she's going to be focusing on product market fit while also, working with some larger leaders and trying to have a new shape for the direction that marketing wants to go with getting more like feedback from the different work streams, engineering and product. That's as much as I can speak on like what her initiatives are right now. It is maybe to dial back some form of partnerships. Hunt and myself are kind of worried about that idea because me and him have a lot of calls with a lot of people that come in to work with the DAO, and we don't want to see that go away. So that's why I'll be staying on in some form or fashion to help facilitate that. Same with Hunt. But yeah, it's her idea to run just a smaller, closer team that can expand later in the future, but just take into effect, for market concerns.
Yeah, I mean, I'll touch on it a little bit too. For now, I think one of the big like things that I was trying to focus on, at least for the last like month or two, is getting that staking rewards proposal through. I'm excited to like start testing traffic a little bit on a more official and like trackable scale. With things like staking rewards and like media buys like that. I don't know how it will be utilized or how we're going to deploy that in the future. But I expect that to be a route that is taken more as we move forward if we get good results from that deal. So, I can really only speak to like the direction that we're going now, and not necessarily the direction that Lindsay wants to go. But I do know that the team's going to be pretty consolidated, and I'm worried as well with Toasty with some of the responsibilities and the gaps that we're starting to view as we try to onboard the limited possible contributors that could be moving forward if this proposal were to pass. So it's a juggle, honestly, at this point, but I'm hopeful that we're gonna make it.
Cool. Yeah, no, those are helpful thoughts, and I can always, talk to Lindsay one-on-one too. Just because I'm looking at it from a perspective of on the customer support side of things, we've seen a drastic drop in tickets just in the past month. Like June, it was like 60% decrease. And we know from the past that like typically marketing campaigns trigger huge sign-ons and people checking in on their shit and testing new features out, which then increases customer support requests. So I guess I'm just kind of curious of like cadence of email marketing, and I know there's a lot of changes with that just because of stupid
You want to touch on that,
GDPR.
Toasty?
But
We got some recent updates on email marketing that you'd probably be interested in for sure.
yeah,
Definitely down to go through that. You want to touch on it, Toast?
Yeah, so obviously email marketing is going to be a focus of Lindsay and what she's kind of trying to do. But right now, we're actually still working on getting a functioning email list. As you know, we sent out that massive email blast to essentially every single person on the ShapeShift email list. And it caused us to have our IP address that we were using to send out kind of blacklisted. So we acquired some new IP addresses to send from. They are requiring what's called like IP warming, which is to kind of get inboxes more familiar with the ShapeShift emails, the IP addresses they're sending from, not getting marked as spam. So Brittany B has been helping us pro bono, which was really nice of her, working with Willie, Hunt, and myself to kind of send out some of these emails, start warming up the IP addresses. Once those start functioning, that's when we're going to be sending out a lot of the CryptoMeg. I'm sure you're familiar with the email blast that we're going to be doing that tells people to get their seed phrase as we start sunsetting the decentralized ShapeShift stuff that we had and having everybody migrate those over. So I'm sure we'll see an increase in tickets once those emails start hitting people's inboxes in the tone of like hundreds of thousands of people, not just tens of thousands of people like we're doing now to warm up the list.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that I've had on my mind for a little while too, just what kind of influx of user issues, because it's just the mobile app has been such a pain in the rear from the jump, just in teaching people self-custodianship and then just all the general product issues that we've had with it, performance issues. So I'm looking forward to get over that hump, but it's going to be a hump for sure. But yeah, that's
agreed.
kind of what I wanted to chat about. So I'll hop off stage, but thanks guys for putting this together.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I don't know. Are there any items you want to touch on related to what we're doing with marketing beyond this proposal, Tootsie? I think without LATAM updates, I don't really want to touch on anything without Lindsay either, but
Yeah, I mean the pro of, even though myself and Hunter stepping down and me staying in as a PM role, it's only supposed to last for about 30 days, and then it frees up some budget that she could play around with. Possibly, get some agency help, outside help for the email marketing, contractors, all that fun stuff, bounty budget. But one of the big things we're focusing on still is that we are still working with the TDM NFT merchandise launch to hopefully generate a little bit of revenue. So I'm going to kind of see that project to the end, and that should be launching in the next couple weeks. Actually, we should be having some of the fabric and the material going over in this next week or so. We have a meeting with TDM. Outside of that, we're just going to be winding up some of the like special projects that we've been working on. Some of the partnerships, kind of migrate those over to Lindsay over the coming weeks, and then start ramping her up so she knows how to pay people, how Colony works, and then we're going to transition from there. So hopefully it'll be a nice, smooth transition. But that's about it right now, top of mind. If there's any other questions, though, anybody wants to hop up on stage, let us know and we'll bring you up.
yeah, that bounty budget too is pretty important moving forward. I'm really hoping that marketing can dial in. I'm going to try to set up and have been setting up with HPan and Ethan and Moshe from Share. Setting up like marketing and growth bounties, globalization bounties to be hosted there. LATAM has been hosting bounties there for a period of time, so I'm excited to try to get that going to continue like velocity and be able to turn up the notch a little bit if we want to, sort of thing.
Guys, we still haven't really figured out the globalization aspect.
Yeah, that's
so,
that's what I was sort of trying to address to like the community, that we're still trying to figure out exactly how to compress this correctly. My best bet so far, realistically, I guess I sort of just told you, and not so much the entire community, is that I'm going to keep like Firebomb in place and JP will still be in place, and of course the Smith will be in place. So basically the entire global team will still be there beyond like the bounty workers. And we'll sort of be able to like shape and craft like a bounty system, sort of like I'm gonna hopefully do with marketing on Share, to navigate that situation and hopefully like deploy more human capital. Hopefully
I
have
think
human capital ready to deploy, but yeah.
I really think D-Work would be a good fit for the bounties.
Yeah, the problem with like D-Work is we need internal bounties to be running, and with Share, I just had them like build in this feature where we're gonna have like an ability to like have internal and external facing bounties in a way that enables like people that might not speak English to easily navigate it and stuff like that. Been working with Moshe for a few months on it, but we'll see what we can do. You and I definitely have some things to get done before things are moving forward, but I'm confident we'll figure something out, bro.
For sure.
Thanks for jumping up, by the way. Yeah, Toasty, anything else that you want to go over? I guess global and LATAM is really like there's just we have a bunch of like thinking to do in terms of like structure for that and how we're gonna try to maintain some of the things that we want to maintain. But beyond that, I think I
Yeah,
covered
I
everything.
mean, I think that's yeah. Unless anybody else wants to hop up or type in the stage chat, we'll be making do of the governance calls, and obviously not the one tomorrow, but the lunch AMAs. To kind of flesh this out a little bit. We'll probably go back to forum in the next day or so to like address kind of what John brought up about potentially starting the growth one sooner than later, put some caveat stuff in there. So I'll talk with you after this. We'll kind of work on that together, give some updates in the forum. But yeah, if anybody else wants to hop up or type in the stage chat, and then what did you say? What was the problem with D work? Was Tyler was asking.
Well, I actually was one of the first people, like I think Toasty was on that call, maybe too, when we talked to Lannis way back in the day and sort of referred them to operations and engineering to use Dwork. The reason that I sort of like still strongly believe in that is just like the use case. I've been working with like a couple of these platforms and Share being the most prominent that I've spent the most time on. In terms of like use case for Shapeshift, because I've actually like consulted Share on like the features that we need for this like marketing bounty system, basically, it like fits perfectly with the workflow that I'm aiming to kind of drive here, to try to sustain this with bounties and less salary workers, part-time and full-time included. So I'm pretty confident that Share is definitely going to work for what we need it to, considering we're like one of two launch partners there. But yeah, just LATAM's feedback with like Dwork and Share. Dwork was just a little bit too complex for what we needed for, and internal bounties weren't where we needed them to be and stuff like that. But I don't know if that covers your question, Tyler.
Yeah, he said it covers it. If we could share the link.
Yeah, no, I love Lannis and Dwork for the record. They're awesome. But like for actually like marketing and LATAM and like globalization, Share's awesome. And I think we might end up being in a position where we might be able to earn some tokens too, like dual rewards for our users using Share. As one of like the two launch partners, hopefully for the early like internal bounty contributors. So that's like an added bonus to this. That's kind of sort of like alpha leaky, but I think it's appropriate.
Cool. Well, um, yeah, coming up on the halfway point, kind of talked a little bit, answered some questions. Is there any more questions? Does anybody want to hop up on stage, talk a little bit about what we posted in the forum, what we just talked about today? I'll give it like a minute, and if nobody comes up or, types in the chat, I think we can kind of like end it here and, start working on some of the changes that were brought up today.
Thanks for hosting this, by the way, Toast.
Yeah, of course. We'll have more office hour, maybe even as soon as sometime next week. Getting Lindsay up on the stage during one of the community lunches. Maybe we'll pop in there tomorrow, and so she can answer Crypto Meg's question a little bit better. I just didn't want to put too many words in her mouth. I was just kind of relaying some information that she shared with me and you. But outside of that, looks like no other questions have popped in the chat. Nobody's raising their hand to come up on stage, so let's call it here. Let's bring Lo-Fi back up, call it at the halfway point, and then we look forward to hearing you guys' comments and stuff in the forum, and we'll start working this afternoon. Oh, hey John.
Hey guys, sorry, just one more
No worries.
question,
Yeah.
or point of clarification, or I guess piece of advice / clarification. I know that there was some discussion / debate, Hunt, about your advisory role in regard to LATAM and just making sure that it's clear about what that is. The original, I know you were very clear in your responses that it was not severance, but the original proposal did call it severance. So my advice is just to be clear about what that is in whatever new proposal goes up, just so that there isn't that kind of contention around it.
Yeah, no doubt. It was like I didn't necessarily author like the gist of this proposal for the record. Just I was just sort of like approving and giving input and like telling them what I was okay with. So that's just sort of how that happened realistically. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
That's a really
fine.
good point.
My advice is just to be clear, because I know that there was some discussion back and forth, and the word severance was in the proposal, so it was easy to see how people might make that mistake if that wasn't right. So let's just make it clear about that.
I told Tosi that I'm like, could you use like a different word? He's like, I don't know what word to use, man.
Yeah, so we'll pull out the thesaurus and think of like what it's going to be, and maybe cover it a little bit more than just a sentence saying what it is. Maybe it gets its own little paragraph detailing out payment from LATAM versus payment from marketing growth, what it covers, the transitory period that like Hunt's gonna have to definitely help Lindsay with, especially like in Colony. So yeah, we'll definitely use different wording and give a little bit more explanation and detail that out a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that would help. And to me, it's not even about using different wording. Just use the clear wording of what you think it is and just try to detail that so that the community understands. Because I think I know where some of the discussion was about, and the confusion was just the word that was used. And then, Hunt was saying that wasn't severance. So just to be clear about that, that's all.
Yeah, it's more of like me having to go through the process of like compressing the work stream in the next like month, right, or month or plus with Toasty, trying to like get that correct and get things sustainable. So I'm like in a good place with how things are moving out of my hands in terms of like leadership for the work stream. And then like stepping down to help LATAM isn't necessarily like gonna reduce my time spent because I'm on the phone with them like every day, even on the weekends, like helping them get through certain things or just brainstorm and strategy and just the million things that those guys are doing and are willing to do and have helped like Shapeshift get out there in certain events that we wouldn't necessarily be able to be at with some side things that we're doing with different communities. So it's not really like I'm not necessarily going to be completely gone or anything, and I'm not asking to be paid while I'm gone. It's more of I'm going to be in a different role. It might not be as public. I might be doing other things, but I'm still going to be here, making sure that things are okay. Just to be clear.
Yeah, I think I understand where you're coming from. My advice would be to just be clear about that in whatever new version of the proposal comes up for the LATAM proposal, or if it's put out into its own, just that this is basically payment for an advisory role, and what Hunt's duties will be as part of that role. I think that's probably what would make it most clear.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
And to be even more clear, there's like a projection there of like 3 months, and Toasty, in my opinion, that I won't necessarily be needed anymore, and that kind of reflects the compensation requests and stuff. So yeah, that's that.
Cool. Well, yeah, thanks, John, for hopping back up and asking to clarify that because we'll put that in the proposal. We'll put some of the other little caveat stuff. So we'll be making some edits and hopefully be able to ship one or the other in the next couple days before the weekend. Probably the marketing growth one first, it sounds like, but cool. All right, if there's no other people that want to pop up here or type any questions, I think we're at a good stopping point. Hunt, was there anything else, or should we just bring Lo-Fi back up on stage and call the day?
Yeah, let's call it. I need to jump on a call with Latam. It's like 10 o'clock there, I think. Yeah, catch them before they're getting happy hour after the plane.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining, and I'll be at I'll ask Lindsay to be at the lunch AMA tomorrow, and we'll obviously be at the governance calls, and you'll see us in the forum. So yeah, we'll chat there. I'm bringing Lo-Fi back up, and thanks again, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.